Hello, this is Andy Graham. I'm in San Pedro, La Laguna, Lake Catalan, Guatemala, and I'm going to interview. I better let him say his name.
Prem Barbosa.
Prem Barbosa. You have the same middle name as me. I'm always afraid of the pronunciation because I think, a lot of Brazilian, right?
Well, I'm half Brazilian, and so Lee is not actually my middle name. It is the second word of my first name. So
So,
let's get complicated, right? So my middle name is actually a different name, and so Prem Lee Freitas Barbosa. That's
okay, see, that's what I was afraid of. Say it like that. I'm smart enough to know that pronunciations of people's names can be, but I call him Prem, and he's a good man, and he's quite got a quite spectacular thing he's been doing on Bitcoin. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies today, and why don't you explain where you're at and what you do every Sunday, so we can start out with the meat of the story here.
Yeah, sure. So hi Andy, thanks for having me participate in this little
Kap kun kap.
video. And I'm in Miami, Florida. I was born and raised around here. I grew up in Miami Beach, and I've done a lot of different things and been to a few different places. But most lately, because of the pandemic, I decided to become a yacht mechanic or something like that. It was just, I used to be in the public school system, and I, yeah, and I saw what happened to the public school system during the pandemic was just, it was too much for me. I couldn't bear it, so I left, and uh, I read an article in a paper, and it said that the trades, like the United States has a big shortage of tradespeople, um and I'm like, huh, you know what? I never really worked with my hands before, so I decided to like kind of dive into that, and like just as I was about to begin my studies, um, maybe it was like November or December of maybe it was 2019. My friend Adolfo, I'm having a conversation with him. He's a Brazilian, and I've known him for years, and he says to me, he goes, "Premley, what do you think about Bitcoin being $40,000?" Now, to give some background to the people who view this, I've been following and interested in Bitcoin probably since 2011, 2010. I don't know when I got interested in it, but I got interested in it pretty early on in the life. And to me, and I'm sure we're going to get into this in all kinds of detail. To me, the Bitcoin represents a sort of evolutionary um, step in human culture and society. To me, it's like I consider it an improvement on money. I call Bitcoin a better money. So for Bitcoin Brunch, which is a meetup that I host once a week on Sundays, I I call it, I say Bitcoin Brunch. We talk about Bitcoin, the future of money, and whatever else people want to talk about. And so I think Bitcoin is the future of money. And so I had stopped paying attention to the Bitcoin news and advancements and technological changes sometime maybe 2016, maybe early 2017, because I kind of got overwhelmed with just, all the technological details and people anticipating a certain price of the asset, or like when is this or that going to happen. So I kind of tuned out. I don't even remember what the price was in like 2015 or 16, but it was maybe like 1,200, let's say. And so for my friend then to tell me out of the blue, I hadn't been thinking about it. It was out of my mind. Hey, Prem Lee, what do you think about Bitcoin being $40,000? I mean, I'd never thought about that as a reality. It was never a reality for me. So I had to really like, whoa, like it's something that I kind of expected to happen was starting to happen. And so what that is that Bitcoin is a technology. It was released, maybe it was like late 2009 or I think it was late 2009. And the goal of Bitcoin was to create an internet native money, a way for people to send money to each other over the internet, and specifically to do it in a way that couldn't be reversed, that couldn't be taken back. And so that's called the double spend problem, or that's what we call the double spend problem, Bitcoiners. And that's the idea that I could go to some business and I could get a good or a service from them, and then I walk away with having been rendered the good or service, and then I call up, my bank or my credit card company or whatever the case is, and I'm like, nah, something, blah, 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 and I want my money back.
Very big problem. I cannot take PayPal at all, and they went as far as I think our Stripe or whatever to get it back from the bank. And this is for consulting. It's really horrible because you've given them a service, and the trolls, my trolls, are so numerous that they will spend a week of work to try to cause me a headache. But that's a good thing. But the big question I know people are going to ask is, are you a rich Bitcoin person?
Well, usually what I say is it's none of
Oh,
your business.
he didn't say no.
Oh, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if I'm rich or if I'm poor. I mean, if you look behind me, I've obviously got a lot of stuff. So, I suffer from the typical American problem of just having too much stuff. And a bunch of it is Bitcoin stuff. That's like a Bitcoin artwork right there from an artist in Germany who does these really detailed hand drawings based on like old sculptures, like old Christian sculptures. And so he takes kind of like Christian iconography and then he turns it into Bitcoin stuff. We've got all kinds of Bitcoin stuff and other stuff, books.
I'm just rich in experience. I got Lake Altalar behind me. One of the world's most beautiful lakes, one of the most greatest climates on the planet, and one of the most deepest scuba diving on the planet. I gotta give a plug for Lake Altalar, right?
And you know what? That's important, Andy, because I would absolutely rather have that behind me than all of this stuff behind me.
Hey, banga, banga.
and I will, but I'm, as you know, I've been like working really hard for the last like almost 3 years. And my goal of doing this, of being stuck in Miami and working full time, studying, trying to learn about boats and how they work and how to fix them and how to repair them, is that I want to free myself in the future, in the hopefully very near future, to be able to work way less, much, much less than I do now, like not full time, and to be able to essentially work. I want to be able to work when I want, as much as I want, and then the rest of the time I want to do whatever else I want to do. But my path so far in life hadn't led me to the point where I felt like I had the skills to do that for me. And so that's, to me, one of the reasons why it's very important that I'm going through this process. I now know how to look at engines. I know how to look at generators. I know how to look at plumbing systems. I know how to look at refrigeration and air conditioning systems. Like, I've learned so much that I didn't know. And like, I feel like the American education system, and, I didn't have my father isn't really a big part of my life. So I didn't really have those influences. So I'm kind of putting in the time now, and I'm doing it, more than full time. Like, I spend so much of my time. One of the Bitcoin ethos is proof of work, is that, demonstrate to the world, demonstrate to your friends and your family the things that you value by your actions, by what you put your effort into to accomplish. Don't just, so the Bitcoiners talk a lot about fiat versus sound money versus fiat, the fiat system, the money printer, the idea that governments will just print up the money, force this money out into their country, into other countries, and they can print them as much of it as they want. Like these days they're doing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of all this
Yeah,
insanity, right?
I don't want to get started on that one.
And we don't have to go down that rabbit hole,
No,
but
I'm just laughing because that's right now is I have this is the first time in my 65 plus years that I've been afraid of the actual economy of the United States just crashing and maybe having irreparable damage, right?
oh
Because
yeah, I mean,
it's a bubble. It's a scary bubble. But
they call it the everything bubble, which is that's
everything
really
bubble.
scary. It's really
Everything's
scary.
a bubble.
So
Okay.
that's all that's what you might call like a proof of stake system. So in the cryptocurrency universe, there's different methodologies for the creation of new tokens, for the for the generation of tokens, for the verification of transactions. And so proof of work is a mechanism in Bitcoin that was invented by cryptographers and mathematicians it was actually Hal Finney, who was he was referenced in the Bitcoin white paper. So when the Bitcoin was announced to the world, Satoshi Nakamoto referenced Hal Finney, who had used proof of work. It's basically forcing your computer to guess numbers.
Right.
And you make the number arbitrarily difficult. So Hal Finney had applied it to email. The idea was, okay, we get all this spam, all these stupid spam people are just sending us dozens and dozens of worthless, useless emails to try to steal from us, to rob us, to just waste our time, to get us to click buttons and stuff. What if we forced all of those spam senders, forced everyone to just do a bit of work, to force their computer to do a bit of work, to guess numbers? And it could be pretty easy. Maybe it'll take a second or 2 seconds, but you can imagine if someone's sending millions of emails because they're a spammer. Well, if all of those millions of emails take 2 seconds to send, that's 2 million seconds. That totally changes the equation in terms of the ability for someone to spam email. So that was the origin of like just one particular aspect of Bitcoin. It's the proof of work, but it's really important to the culture of Bitcoin, proof of work. And so, whatever Bitcoin I have, I'm hoping that it's going to be useful to me in the future when there is more of an economy or a market around Bitcoin. Like right now, the only market around Bitcoin right now is the investment, is a speculation market. And that's not what I'm interested in, but that is what most people are interested in. I mean, people will ask me, they'll say, hey, Prem, how do I invest in Bitcoin? And to me, that's the wrong mindset. To me, Bitcoin is a savings account. It's not an investment. It's a savings account, in the sense that I want to put money in a piggy bank, and I don't want the money to shrink, which is what happens if you put your money in a US bank savings account. If you just leave $100,000 just as an example to make it real simple in a US savings account, and they're giving you 0.1% a year. I mean, 0.1% on 100,000, I think is $100 a year. Maybe it's $1,000, but I think, but it's just your money is not growing as fast as the inflation of the dollar. So if you just leave $100,000 in a bank and just leave it there, like you don't put it in a CD, you don't manage it, right? Because a lot of people don't have the time, don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the knowledge or the education to manage money. And it's unfortunate that the dollar is essentially robbing us. Like if you just leave $100,000 in a savings account, after 10 years, you've got like $101,000, but the inflation rate, it just murdered you. It's worth less. It's worth maybe like 70,000. It's worth what 70,000 would have bought you if you would have just bought a house for that 70,000. If you would have just bought a car for that 70,000.
But if somebody would have bought at $60,000 Bitcoin, and right now it's at 34, they would have lost half their money, wouldn't they?
That's a great point, Andy. Only if they sell it. So if they have the time, if they have the capacity to wait it out, then they don't have to sell that Bitcoin. They can just wait and let it sit there. And then I expect it to go up again. I can't tell you when. I'm not psychic. I don't predict prices, but to me, it's about economics. Bitcoin has a limited quantity, but the demand for Bitcoin, the number of people in the world learning about Bitcoin is only going to grow.
Yes, I agree with that for sure. So that's the demand, and then if you have a limited, when it gets to the point when it's reaching the end of the mining of Bitcoin, you'll have a urgency to buy it or demand for buying it. That's a good point. How many? Let's ask a sundry question: is how many cryptocurrencies are there in existence now? Because that's kind of your competition in a way, right?
Yeah. So I want to tell the viewers that I personally am what you might call Bitcoin only.
Okay.
So with that in mind, there are more than 20,000 cryptocurrencies,
Oh,
and there are more being created every single day. It's to me, it's a circus, it's a travesty, it's insanity, it's
well,
hysteria.
they all have the dream of becoming the next gold mine.
Well, the
Let,
next
let's
Bitcoin,
let's
they
talk
all want to be
about
the next
your
Bitcoin.
let's talk about your brunch. What is the main topics you have at this? It's four, you said 4 or 5 hours,
Yeah, I'm there for at
and
least 5 hours every Sunday.
it's free, right? And who's invited?
Oh, it's a very organic grassroots effort. I When I started it, I didn't have anything going on my Sundays. And I wanted to connect with other Bitcoiners. I wanted to meet other Bitcoiners to be able to discuss about economics, politics, technology. And so there was nothing like Bitcoin brunch going on at the time. There were crypto meetups. There were occasional Bitcoin meetups, but there wasn't anything I don't know. There was a lot of things going on at the time when I started it. It I just invited people in Telegram, which is a messaging application, because that's where a lot of Bitcoiners for some reason have congregated. There's a few
Telegram.
different social networks. Yeah,
Interesting.
Telegram, Twitter. Now there's Nostr, which is a whole different discussion. And so I I've done it over 120 times now. So the viewers have an
That's
idea of.
spectacular, Prem. That's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to all of them because I've gone out of town a few times, thankfully, because I love traveling and I haven't been able to travel very much. But at this point, and for let's say maybe the last year or even longer, I've had so many regulars and a few very consistent regulars that I don't have to be there for it to go on.
Good.
But I am usually the first person there, but I'm not always the first person there.
I've been self-employed for almost 45 years, and if I could get one person working for me that could do something 100 and what 20 times you said,
Yeah.
it would be. It's not. I've never had that type of worker, right? And that was that consistency. And I want to bring this up because it makes you a very employable person. Okay, because
Yeah. I wish the companies would know that.
well, you got to blow your own horn, or somebody will use it for a
Yeah, no, that's for
spittoon.
sure. I'm
So
learning that
I just want you to
fast.
realize, from my perspective, I've hired hundreds and hundreds of people, and to have any consistency, okay, the problem is they might even show up. I used to fire them if they didn't show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, but to get them to do something like on the same project over and over and over, they get bored and they won't work on it, right? And they lose interest in what they're doing. But that's a spectacular thing. So
Well,
this thing is in Naomi's Garden Restaurant and Lounge. Where's that at? Give me a landmark close to it.
ooh. Well, I mean, it's
A big building or
there's no big buildings immediately nearby. It's about less than 10 minutes from downtown Miami.
okay.
It's on 71st Street, which is a pretty big road
So
in Miami.
the Google Maps should say Naomi's Naomi Garden Restaurant.
And lounge.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you
It
put Naomi's
starts
Garden,
it
it'll
starts at
pop up.
what time?
10 a.m. So I'm there about 10 o'clock every
Okay.
Sunday. I even have a banner. There was a banner donated to us, so I put up this big banner says Bitcoin Brunch Miami.
Okay,
Um,
great. And when they come, I want them to buy you lunch.
I don't think anyone's bought me lunch.
Serious?
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't ask for things usually.
Oh, that's eventually they'll come up and start handing you money. Trust me.
Okay.
Why should viewers attend to explore the world of cryptocurrency, learn about investment, network, and network with industry experts? And I think this is the great big one. I mean, I don't even want to bring up Bitcoin with people because I'm afraid they'll get into they'll just go buy it. They have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I had somebody send me some Bitcoin, and I think one guy's sent me some Bitcoin and then actually took it from me. Okay.
Oh.
Because I
Um,
couldn't figure out how to use it. He said he sent me $1,500, and I said I can't find it. So I finally gave him all my passwords, and then I think he wrote me last week. It said, "Thanks for giving me all your Bitcoin." Um,
um,
but it's the nature of the anonymity too. I did If these
yeah.
people wouldn't have given it to me anonymous, I would have been able to. A lot of people want to give me money anonymous. I go,
Yeah.
I'm afraid people are going to try to pay me anonymously right now than try to buy uh, consulting, and I'll get a Western Union number, and it's just fake, right? So
Yeah. I mean, Andy, I don't push Bitcoin onto people.
I know,
Uh,
I know.
since,
That's why I'm talking to you.
yeah, since at least, like again, when I tuned out of Bitcoin, and this is one of the main reasons why I do Bitcoin brunch, is because I'm tired of trying to convince people about Bitcoin or to throw it on to people or to bring it up in conversations. Um, Instead, are we gonna do a second one after this one ends?
Oh, we might as well stop and start again, I guess.
All right, sure. Yeah, because I can bring up that same point. So I don't push Bitcoin on people, and the reason I don't is because of how many, and believe me, there were many people in the 2012, 13, 14, 15 who just completely blew me off in terms of, hey, Bitcoin is interesting. You should look into this. This is going to be big. This is super cool. This is the future. And yeah, okay, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. So I don't push it on people, but I do long to connect with other human beings, just like
Yeah.
we do, right? So that's why I started Bitcoin Brunch, so that people who are already interested in Bitcoin come to me.
You think you have any way of qualifying their interest so that you do get the correct person?
No, I don't do anything like that because it's open to the public and anyone can come. Um, like after having just told people about it over the internet, basically like through personal word of mouth. Um, Eventually someone decided to create an Eventbrite page for me. So once they did that, I started getting more people because people were finding the Eventbrite. Um, and I've come across all kinds of people, like all manner of people. Like, I'm Bitcoin only, but I've gotten lots of crypto people. So I've had whether it's an investor who's looking for a project to put money into, or if it was a developer who's looking for a company to work for, or if it was an entrepreneur who was looking for someone to invest in I've met so many different kinds of people having done this over 120 times.
Sure.
And the reason why I've done it so many times is because I made a commitment at the start. I was supposed to go to meet you in at the lake actually several years ago.
Oh,
I had a ticket. I had bought a ticket and I was going to go, and then I had a health problem just kind of come up, and I wasn't able to like walk normally. My knee was hurting. I had to go through all kinds of insanity with the US American healthcare system to get to a point where I felt kind of normal again.
sure.
And so to me, doing Bitcoin brunch, a part of it is I made a commitment that I was going to do it as long as I was still in Miami.
Right.
For as long as I was here. So I'm still here. So I just keep doing it.
Well, I thank you for doing it. And you gave a talk one time at a group we had. You kind of missed one of the biggest meetups we ever had. We had 40 people, I think, at that one. I think it was huge. But I appreciate it. Let's talk about the Sam Bankman-Fried journey. He's the I'm sure you've got more knowledge than about anybody I could ever know about.
Well,
This is what
probably.
scares people. This is scares.
Yeah. And so I think the thing about Sam Bankman-Fried, and I really don't know that much about it because, as I said earlier, to me, Bitcoin is not an investment. It's a savings account. And so what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing was treating Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as an investment. And he was essentially playing a Ponzi scheme, and he was a con man. He was telling people that they would get a certain return for doing just, like a very blatant action, like here, put your tokens into whatever the FTX and press these buttons, and we're going to give you whatever percentage it is. And so this was just, it was, there's a term, FOMO, fear of missing out, and they use it a lot in the crypto scene because people will get into things because they're afraid of missing out on the next Bitcoin. They're afraid of some token that started at zero going to 30,000, 60,000, 1,000. Like some of these tokens, they want it to go to $1, right? Like if it could just get to $1, I'd be a billionaire. And
right. Well, I see it a kind of a gold rush mentality, and I don't talk with people about Bitcoin because they're not a lot of times, well, any kind of cryptocurrencies, because they don't want to look at the pros and cons of it. They're really too emotional.
oh
And
yeah.
I don't I don't suffer fools well, right? So I just keep my mouth closed. And I've had a few members of my that I just like, get away from me. I said, you can do anything you want. You're a free person. I'm not going to try to change what you're doing. But I do think it's very, very interesting. And I'm a gadget guy. I love numbers. So it's really a great thing for me to talk about because this is just like just exactly the kind of thing that I like to do is the probabilities of things and how to, I was calculating the probabilities of a person going on the left side into the road or the right side of a car, not on the road, right? I was going to make a video on it. I finally realized nobody's going to care that I'm doing an IQ test. If they walk in the road, they get hit, right? If they walk on the sidewalk, they minimize it. But 80% were taking the risky walk. And I was like, what is this? Why is this? But Bitcoin is so interesting because it's like a psychological construct of what people do.
So I'd like to mention, Andy, so about 5 months maybe or several months into me starting Bitcoin Brunch, because of the fact that I didn't really set an agenda, and I didn't curate who is allowed to come to brunch,
yes.
the topics of discussion would go all over the place. So I decided what I wanted to do was my goal was to every week have a little essay, and then I would present it at 2 p.m. So out of the 5 hours, for about 5 minutes, I would just ask everyone to be quiet and listen to me. You guys came to my hangout and you've talked about whatever you've wanted to talk about for the last several hours. And now for just a few minutes, listen to what I have to say. And what's that look, Andy?
This is a potential book, I think, right?
Oh yeah. So, yeah, it's absolutely a book.
Great.
I've done,
I can help you to publish that too.
So I've got 65 of these already. I haven't been able to keep up every week. It's just kind of tough.
Oh yeah.
But I've got 65. And so my goal is to do 100. And then when I got 100, then I'm going to kind of go into an edit mode, go back and edit all of them and make them more reasonable and understandable. and I've used that opportunity of that few minutes every week, or whenever I read them, to try to bring up a topic, something to make people think about, right? Something thoughtful, a caution or a warning. So there was a time, I've had different kind of themes depending on what was popular or what was big in the news. So when the FTX thing was happening, I was certainly talking a lot about crypto investing and warning people, warning my attendees that, hey, I understand there's a lot of hype going on. You're seeing headlines, maybe people who are influencing you are telling you things to get you excited about crypto, but there's a lot of risk. And even like, despite the risk, because even if you get out in time, right? Like, let's say your timing is good. The reality of most of these cryptos is that they are Ponzi schemes. They are scams. They're empty, hollow promises. There's no there. I could talk for I could talk for hours about.
I called you last year or something about a guy in Huachuco that was getting a guaranteed, I don't know, 2% a week or something, or 10% a week. I was like, well, this is a Ponzi scheme. And I didn't want to talk to him because he was living off the money. And I met some people that were involved in a Ponzi scheme in Dominican Republic. And they were so mad when I said, how do they make money? What's the difference? They give us a 80% return a year. And I go, because it sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
So the way I would say it is, I'd say, where does the yield come from?
Yeah, exactly.
And what I tell them, I mean, I've written this in several of my essays, is that you are the yield.
Sure.
Like when you give them, like when you put your dollars, or when you can, because a lot of these exchanges, especially the decentralized, the unregulated exchanges, you have to first turn your dollars into Bitcoin and then deposit your Bitcoin into these exchanges.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is all a scam. You're giving up. I mean, I consider Bitcoin to be the soundest money that humans have ever created. That's a very controversial take, I think, for most people, but this is my sincere belief. I came to that belief because well before Bitcoin was invented or presented, I already had a certain understanding of economic history. And so I was already aware of the terrors of the printing press, of the government having essentially unchecked capacity to spend money. And that money is ultimately, it's us, it's our effort, it is our production, right? So all of the people in the United States who are actually doing something productive, every time the government prints a dollar and spends it on some wasteful program, they're stealing all of our value. Just to,
One of the best reasons to attend this brunch is to talk about inflation, value, and so many people are investing in stocks, and they have this portfolio and they're just guessing. And I did an investment game where I got 125% return on my money 3 quarters in a row. And most people they're really just looking for the pot of gold, and that's really, they need somebody to talk over the pros and cons of all these issues, right? And they can't be talking to themselves, right? That's really good. I really appreciate it.
It depends so much on where you are also in your life, because I'm 36, so I still have the time and the physical ability to start a new career, and I'm looking at okay, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when I'm 56, what about when I'm 66? What do I have to look forward to? What what have I built for myself? And unfortunately,
girl's not looking at you. That's what you have to look
for. Among other things, I'm sure. And so to me, it was understanding, my understanding of economics kind of led me to the ultimate altcoin. So I don't want to use a bad phrase and screw with your video's appearance.
It's only the profanity or talking about children.
Well, it's a poop coin, I guess, is the best way for me to say. There's a less pleasant way to say that, but we call in Bitcoin, we call the altcoins, we call the other coins, we call them poop coins. because
Okay.
to us they are all, they're all poop, they're all crap, they're, you're polishing a turd. And unfortunately, that's very tragic. It's very tragic that so many millions of people right now are being tricked into thinking that these fly by night investment products, these digital financial assets, are going to free them or liberate them from their economic toil. And so it is a tragedy. And the ultimate tragedy to me is the dollar, because this is the king of
Well,
them all. It's the king. It's the top of the
what
pyramid
what
scheme.
what my 2 cents on investment is that when you're 37 years old, you can make a fortune and lose a fortune and survive. When a person's 65, they should preserve their capital and try to
Absolutely.
calculate how many years they're going to live and make sure they have enough money. And anything where they could lose their whole principal, I would stay out of. Okay.
Yeah, I
And
think I think Bitcoin, again, as an investment, it's a very tenuous concept. I don't look at it as investment, and I don't recommend it as an investment. So for someone who is in their 60s, who is, thinking about how they can preserve their purchasing power in the remainder of their life, I can't, in all good consciousness, recommend, oh yeah, put your money into Bitcoin. I don't tell anyone to do that. Um, to me, it's more like if you had grandkids and you were worried about how you're going to preserve your wealth for them.
sure.
That's the kind of time scale that Bitcoin is a lot more relevant.
Well,
But
I've been an investor all my life because I've always invested in myself. I've always been self-employed, and I had to make it, right. You really don't have any choice when you're self-employed, and I've done, really well for 45 years, right. But there's always ups and downs. Most people cannot handle the emotional stress of up and down. Some I was laughing. I signed up for a Charles Schwab account. Somebody said, "You can lose money, Andy." And I started laughing. I said, "Do you know how much money I've lost being self-employed? Wow, I just lost $300,000 on my company, right?"
but I mean,
I go,
do they mean like if you were to invest it? Because Charles
"Well,
Schwab, they have a checking account, an FDIC insured
no,
account.
they're talking in stocks." And
Yeah. Okay.
of course you can lose money in stocks. It's a great way to turn a fortune into a shoestring. But they've never lost in their life because they've always been wage slaves, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of actually buying Bitcoin at 60,000 and going down to 30,000,
Yeah. I mean, so what I'd say in that regards,
don't
you know,
buy high.
well, I'm not going to say don't buy high, but I'll say like, don't, oh man, it's not financial advice, right? Obviously.
It is financial advice what you're doing.
Well, I don't, but what I tell people is if you're curious about Bitcoin, buy $5 worth,
Yeah, but don't
and
take responsibility for their decisions.
well, I don't. I mean, that's what I say,
Okay,
because I don't give financial advice. I could tell you how I live, but I would want you to be my friend first before, I'm talking to a bunch of strangers right now other than you. So,
right.
so I'm not going to necessarily tell them about my personal circumstances, but to me, Bitcoin is the reason why it's so important to me is because if Bitcoin is a better money, and we spend so much of our lives worried about the acquisition and maintenance of our money, then to me, it's worthwhile then to talk about a better money,
Sure.
because a better money can save some of our time. It can save, it can ease maybe the ability with which most people suffer over money.
Well, I I'm actually hoping for a depression in the United States. So because I think they need some consequences to their illogical behavior, and they need to appreciate the value of money. Okay, and in the depression, maybe the Bitcoin would be very valuable. Who
Yeah, and
knows?
it's not just that people should appreciate the value of money, but maybe the value of their own time, the value
Well,
of other
that's
people's
right now.
time.
They don't see that they're. I mean, I've been self-employed, and like right now, my one business, basically COVID-19 relatively put me out of business. Who's going to
Yeah.
expect the pandemic, right? I was making $5,000 a month with Google AdSense, and it now is down to $62, right? And so who expects a business you grow in a business? My real estate business always grew. And some of these internet business and digital things and these, they're watching this nomad capitalism and all these crazy things. It's just, it's the age of silly people talking about silly things and thinking they're intelligent because they watched a YouTube video.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of self-righteousness and
Oh yeah. Are
people
we
patting themselves on the back.
this is a big question. Is the US going to go to a digital currency, in your opinion?
Yes, that was my essay last Sunday,
All
just a
right.
few days ago. I'm warning people about what's called a central bank digital currency. I don't know the time scale, but I'm starting to think it's going to be faster than I expect. Maybe, 5 to 10 years, start rolling something out. To me, the big foundation for this was a program called FedNow. FedNow is a money transfer, an interbank money transfer program that the Federal Reserve Bank has initiated this year. Over 100 banks are already participating. It's essentially a Venmo, a PayPal, a Zelle, a
Yeah.
cash app, any of these services. That's what the FedNow does. It allows people who have an account at one of these participating banks to instantly transfer cash to someone at another bank. So to me, this is the start. That's the seed. They're going to get all the banks on this FedNow program. And then once all of the banks are on the FedNow program, and that could take, again, 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
then they're going to switch over to the CBDC. Now, the thing about the central bank digital currency is that it arbitrarily places the government in every single transaction. Right now, you might have Visa or MasterCard or whoever the merchant processor is in the middle of your transaction between you and the bank,
Right.
or
You're
whatever the
inserting the
case is.
government. Yeah.
Yeah, but now you're going to insert the government in there. And you could just imagine the possibilities.
Well, I lost $10,000 to the IRS because she suspected me of hiding money. And I said, you can't hide real estate. I said, you think I'm rich and I'm not rich. And I finally just told my accountant, find a number for her that'll get her to shut up so I can go back to work. And I paid her $10,000 and the thing disappeared. But the government is, and all my rich friends go, you always was Mr. Clean, Mr. Honest, whatever, doing everything. And
They
now
don't
you're
care.
just like us. Now you realize you got to partner with the US government. And
Well, I think that's all going to go away. So
well,
when the government is the
$30
spinal
trillion.
cord. Well, no, I'm saying that the tax thing, taxes are not going to go away. It's you having to file the taxes, all that stuff. The government's they're gonna see everything. So
oh yeah,
so they're
if
gonna
they could get rid of the accountants, I would be in heaven.
yeah, they're gonna get rid of the accountants, but they're not gonna get rid of the money printer. That's the thing is, so now they're gonna be able, if they do a stimulus, okay, we're gonna give everyone $1,000. Well, they're gonna do it through FedNow. So the moment the president signs it, there's going to be some guy on a computer who's going to press an enter button, and then everyone who's eligible for that stimulus is going to immediately get it.
Prem, you should be getting like $50 an hour or more in consulting fees. And is there any way for somebody to send you money other than Bitcoin?
Well, of course. I am still tapped into the U.S. financial system, so I've got a PayPal account and Zelle.
Do you have Zelle is one of the ways you can get money?
Zelle and Venmo.
Okay. Well, so you're how does one contact you?
So my username or screen name on many services is Premitive1, Premitive1. So if you were to look for me, I mean, depending on what your service is, so if you use email, you could at gmail.com.
Primitive1@gmail.com.
Yeah, Twitter, Telegram, there's, a lot of different places. If you search for Primitive1, I mean, you'll find something about me, and then you could hit me
Okay.
up.
Well, I think there's people. I have a lot of people wanting consulting. The bad part is they always try to be anonymous, right? And I go, hey, guy, I can't deal with the anonymous person.
Well, I don't mind.
I don't have any use for anonymous people.
All of your anonymous people, they can send me money. They can send me their anonymous money,
Well,
especially if it's Bitcoin.
if you can get the money Bitcoin and they can't get it back.
Oh
See
yeah,
what
that's the point of Bitcoin, Andy. One day, if you're interested and we're together, I'll walk you through some of the different things, but
they
only
can
if you're
send you the
interested.
Bitcoin and you can send me the cash.
Yeah, but see, that turns me into a money transmitter, and that's a federal crime.
Well, I can tell you that when I was in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach, I was very afraid when a girl said I was rich, and I realized that I had all my Bitcoin, $100, $100, and they could put me in a room, stick a gun in my face, and say, give me my money," and
Yeah.
I could transfer $100,000, I think, from my phone to them. They could whack me, and I'm done, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's certainly going to happen, and it certainly does
And so I
happen.
don't want anybody
Not
to
so much
have
in
a
El
hundred
Salvador.
dollars and 100,000. I was talking to my friend Jeff, and been a manager in the banks. He's a big wig in Fort Wayne banks, and he seemed to act like they could only get $5,000 on a like over the phone transfer. And I really think I don't know how much money we can wire and transfer with Zelle and all these things, but they need a cap on these things so that you can't just transfer $100,000 without a couple. Like maybe I would have another representative that they had to talk to also, right? I don't like
Yeah,
the
Bitcoin
idea.
is, I mean, all of these services, they do have caps. They have daily caps, and Bitcoin doesn't. So if you're using Bitcoin, and if you if you had a wallet on your phone that had a lot of Bitcoin on it, then that could definitely be transferred. I don't recommend that anyone keeps a lot of Bitcoin on their day carrier phone. So, a Bitcoin wallet is essentially a username and password.
Sure.
So if you can remember what they call a private key, or if you can save a private key somewhere, so you could write it down, you could, inscribe it into a tree. But basically, if you could save it, usually I think it's 12 words, maybe. So if you can save 12 words in order,
Yeah.
you could then otherwise eliminate the Bitcoin from your phone, at
Well,
least a large
I
quantity.
really want somebody to receive the Bitcoin for me and convert it to cash.
Yeah, so I mean that's something like you can sign up for what they call a crypto exchange. So Coinbase is probably one of the most famous ones. Binance is another very famous one. So if you sign up for one of these services,
I signed up for both of those, but it's even though I'm like a mechanical genius, it still was difficult.
yeah, well, again, like I'm happy to help you out if you want
I
help
know.
sometime
Well,
with that.
now that I don't have other things on my brain, I might do it. I'm signing up for Patreon, and I'm trying to get some way to have somebody give me money easily
Yeah.
without them being able to take it back. I had somebody take back $10 the other day on GoFundMe, and I go, "Gee, everybody will give the money back, right?"
Well, Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin, is absolutely non-refundable.
Yeah. Well, I if I could figure out a way to get the Bitcoin and they couldn't stick me in a room, I would take Bitcoin. But people try to give me Bitcoin and they promise me $5,000, and then I talk too much and I talk too much. They really just want a reason to talk to me. See, this is part about being an expert, Prem. They will try to call you up and say, "Well, I want to do this and this." Then they keep switching to their consulting questions, right? Then they
Yeah.
and so Western Union's the only way I know right now that I can receive money. The I guess the go live on YouTube. Have you a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel.
That super chat thing is really a great way. A lot of people are really connected to it. I made $75 the other day just blabbing away, right?
Yeah.
And it, but they Google takes 30%. 30%.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure. The bottom line when you have a business, you're always going to leak out about 25% of the profits. Okay. It just those, your employees stealing money, the people overtime cards. It's just amazing how many ways people put their hands in your pocket. Um, you're what is the deal on El Salvador? This is supposedly one of the legal currencies there. I spent about, I don't know, a couple weeks there. And is this a feasible legal current for a country?
Yes. It definitely is. However, I think that the way that it's going to work out is just like with the dollar, there's going to be a lot of what we might call paper Bitcoin.
Sure.
And so I think that that's going to, it's going to come into play. But other than that, yes. So other than, you brought up several times if someone were to buy the Bitcoin at $60,000. Well, my condolences to anyone who bought all of the Bitcoin they were ever going to buy at the last high. If
Well,
you're
people when they get some sort of orgasmic rush it's a gold rush, right?
euphoria.
And they don't realize you're always supposed to be buying low, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the FOMO, right? So people who bought at 60,000 and who bought, a large amount at 60,000, who put a lot of money in, that was FOMO. They were totally, that was not a strategic move. That wasn't a well thought out move. That was an emotional move. They were trying to get in on whatever, what they perceived as everyone else is getting rich and I'm losing out.
Well,
No.
I think they should get on a plane, go to Miami, go to this Naomi's Garden
Garden.
restaurant, and see you on Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning and say, I got a lot of money and I really am clueless, but I really feel like I should be playing around. I should get into this at least with 10% of my money just to play. And they should buy you lunch and accidentally give you a lot of cash.
Yeah, well, so to kind of capstone about El Salvador, so other than at the peak, I mean, otherwise, Bitcoin has been relatively unvolatile.
Yeah.
and
Well,
so I mean, it
but
works. There's a technology called Lightning Network, which is essentially a certain kind of a liquidity system on top of Bitcoin that allows people to do instantaneous, really cheap transactions. And that's the primary mechanism that they're using in El Salvador. It's the issue is going to be adoption. It's going to take a long time. So
did
I'm
we
going to say,
talk about going to El Salvador next year?
oh yeah, I am dead set on going to El Salvador next year. I want to spend at least 3 weeks. I my goal is I want to visit the rest of El Salvador. I don't want to just hang out in San Salvador or El Zante, Bitcoin Beach, as they call it. I want to go to the rest of El Salvador, and I want to see what the regular Salvadorans are saying, because I think that it's not. I think most of them are probably looking at it as just some sort of like colonial trick, some kind of, just some new foreign project that's gonna screw us over. I think that's what most of them are going to think. I don't think most people in El Salvador understand pretty much anything about Bitcoin any
No,
more
they
than they
don't.
understand about
When
the
I was
dollar.
there, they didn't. But they were
And
taking it at the supermarket.
but yeah, and so I mean, I think there's like a lot of places are accepting it, especially the big corporations, chains, and things like that, because there is a law. It's mandated in El Salvador. They just don't enforce the law. So you'll come across a lot of small businesses that don't take Bitcoin. You'll come across a lot of street vendors that don't take Bitcoin. But I want to talk to those people and I want to understand their impression. And then if they want, I'd be happy to answer their questions.
I will be taking a video if I come.
Yeah, for sure. And because that's what I put it on the Bitcoiners of the world it's their responsibility. It's our responsibility to push this in El Salvador. You know, I think there's a great opportunity if the people take advantage of it. I don't want it to be forced on them. So I don't want the government to be fining people if they don't accept Bitcoin, but I want the people of El Salvador to understand this chance that they have. They got this money that's not controlled by the Salvadoran government. It's not controlled by the US government. It's not controlled by any government. It's controlled by the Bitcoin network. It's controlled by thousands and thousands of people all over the planet who are participating in this system.
Well, with your, I know you already know that Real Dulce is one of the place where you would be highly employable with a lot of your working on boats and cruisers and diesel motors and electronics and stuff. It's one of the biggest hurricane ports on the planet. And then it's really close to El Salvador. So, you know, okay, we're gonna get knocked off of this soon. This thing's kind of weird. Again, it's gonna be every Sunday, 10 o'clock at say the name of the restaurant?
Naomi's Garden.
In really close to the center of Miami. So Naomi's Garden. And I'll put this in the description, and go slip Bitcoin to Prem, send him money, make him rich, make him so that he doesn't sit there. And so he comes and visits me in one of the 114 countries I'm in, and he realizes that I'm free. I'm free on less than $750 a month right now. I can travel the whole world. It's cheaper to travel the planet than it is to live in the United States. I feel sorry for people in the United States. Okay, I'm Andy Lee Graham. I've been traveling nonstop for 25 years. I don't have a home in the United States. I've been living in 114 countries. Prem's in Miami. And muchas gracias por hablamos con nosotros y hasta luego. C'est bon, la vie est belle. Je parle français avec toi. Say something in Portuguese.
Muito obrigado, Andy.
Okay. Ele fala português. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Life is good.